Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now this is Retro Reviews number 5. How time flies. I can't believe I've done 5 of them. I'm sort of intending to do I don't know if you've seen it, there is a sort of unreliable product review that I did. So they're just looking at amplifiers that were well known but unreliable. And I'm intending to do one on CD players because there's a whole host of CD players over the years that have been sort of a bit problematic, and it just got me thinking that I haven't actually done a retro review of a CD player. So here we have a Meridian 206. And the Meridian 206 was probably one of the first players I actually started to take seriously. I never, as people who know me will know, not particularly into digital. I never quite, whether I've got a bit of ADHD or something, I don't know, but I can't settle with CD. I find my mind wanders now and I want to do something else. Whereas with a good analog, records, I'll sit down and I'll focus and I can't drag myself away from it. And that's, to me, has always been the thing between analog and digital, is you can sort of judge them technically and they're not that far apart from each other, but vinyl always makes you want to sit there and listen to it, whereas CD never does. But I think this player was the first one to sort of close that gap up quite a bit. This is a very early 206. There's quite a few variants on it that look the same, but actually quite distinctly different internally. This uses a CDM, and people will put me right in the comments if this is wrong, because I'm just trying to remember. This uses a CDM4 Philips mechanism, or one of the variants of it anyway, and it was a Philips 16-bit chip for the DAC. After this came a 206B, which was Bitstream, and that Bitstream sort of was taken up by most people actually of a better way of doing it. It's a more analog way to convert the signal, really. And Meridian's version was very good. The 206B was a good player, actually, a very good player. And then quite shortly after that, there was a sort of tweaked version which uses a different same mech but a different chipset again, which wasn't a Philips set. It was by, I can't remember what it's called now. Crystal or something. Might need to look that up actually, but yeah, something like Crystal or whatever. I think a few people were using a similar this similar chipset. I think it's called DAC. I think it was called DAC 7. Yeah, DAC 7. But there was I can't remember what the actual manufacturer was. And that was superb. That was a really good player actually. But original tour, this is my player actually. I mean, I don't really listen to CDs a lot. It tend to be if I need something for background music, I'll just stick the old Meridian on. So I've actually owned this for 25 years plus. I can't actually, I'm trying to think when they were actually produced these. I would say late 80s probably. I probably bought it around that sort of time. So I've had this a long time, and I've sort of had other CD players as well, but this one's always sort of stuck with me, really. Built like a tank, really. I mean, the build quality is incredible. Kind of looks like it's 2 boxes, and you can sort of see there's these 2 bits look like they're separate things. It's not. It is all one box, just pretending to be 2. They did actually do a transport which looked like this, but there was also a DAC for it as well. So there's a 200 transport that looked exactly the same as a 206, and there was a 203 DAC, which was a half size, so it just looked like a single box, and that was good as well. Actually, that was a good player. But Meridian have always been, I mean, they were right there at the forefront of it, really. They were one of the first British manufacturers to do a kind of audiophile CD player, really, I suppose you call it. The very first player that they did was called the MCD, and that was based on, I should research these, shouldn't I? I just sort of sit down, switch the camera on, and then sort of try and remember stuff. The Meridian MCD was based on a Philips 104. Again, put me right in the comments if that's wrong. But the 104 was the sort of 3/4 width, actually probably similar size to this, but with a sloping front and the top loader. So you press down and it popped up. You put your disc in. So yeah, quite an early top loader. Quite a lot of top loaders nowadays, but the Philips was quite an early one. The only way you could tell that Meridian had done any magic on it really was that it had quite a nice, well, of its time, it was very much of its time actually, with a Nextel finish, like a grey sort of soft touch finish to it. And shortly after that, they did a higher spec version of it, which was called an MCD Pro, which had an extra box on the bottom. Again, a bit like this, in that it looks like two boxes, but isn't. This was a sort of looked like a Philips CD player sitting on top of another box with a, you know, so it's quite a tall version of it. And that was quite a nice player actually. That was quite good. I mean, Meridian generally around this time, this was the era of M2s, M3s, M10, M1 speakers, sort of full active stereo speaker sets, and they were really good. I mean, the thing with the Meridian CD player was they did do a version of this, which was called the 207, which had a preamp in it. I think 207, then there was a 208, which had a preamp in. So all you needed was your CD player with its preamp, and just connect that into a pair of Meridian active speakers. And it was something else. It was really good little setup, and I mean, quite expensive at the time, I think it was. But it was, the quality you got for the money was something else. I remember M3s with a little two-way one, and then confusingly, the M3 was a two-way and the M2 was a three-way, I think. And then there was either I never remember which is the earliest one. I think the M1 was the big one, but then they also did an M10, which looked a bit sort of, I was going to say it looked like a Dalek. It didn't look like a Dalek, but it sort of had a very strange frontage to it, with drivers in the front, drivers at the side. It was even drivers at the back, and it used KEF drivers, so it was very similar to an isobaric. I think it had possibly B110 mid-bass units and the big B139. We used to call them racetrack units that Lynn had used, you know, the KEF driver, the KEF B139. Astonishing sounding things, but yeah, you use your Meridian CD player as a example. Meridian has sort of gone off on their own tangent, really. You don't see them a lot in hi-fi dealers now, but they seem to be doing some great things. They still do the active speakers, but they've got very much into streaming, very much into MQA streaming. I don't follow streaming at all, so I think that's their specific little direction they've gone in. And I've heard it, and it's pretty good, really. Not greatly into streaming, but I think MQA. I think probably streaming is sometimes it sounds amazing straight away, and then you start to realise after a while that it's not engaging you. Very clear, very precise, very everything there, but it just doesn't engage. So I have heard Meridian with the MQA sets, and they're sort of, yeah, it's good, but yeah, you know me, blimey fine. So yeah, that's the Meridian 206. Funnily enough, I'm going to be, like I say, I'm going to be doing a sort of a. What reminded me about this was the fact I was going to do a CD players, you know, popular CD players that were on reliable video, and that reminded me that I should do a retro review CD player. The 208, what was it, 207? 207, which had the preamp in it, for some reason was really unreliable. The 206s weren't too bad. I don't actually remember particularly getting any faults with 206s. But the 207 had all sorts of faults with it. It was really odd. I even remember another dealer telling me that they'd had a 207 and it had been playing away, and all of a sudden the drawer opened randomly, and the disc shot out of it and across the room like a shuriken, like that. I'm not quite totally sure if that is possible, but there was quite a few stories about 207s and the bizarre things that they did, like suddenly stopping and suddenly, you know, going off on their own, logic faults and power supply faults and output faults, but the rest of the range are fine. It just seemed like the 207s particularly, and possibly, I'm saying this now, but I think the 208 had sort of similar issues with it. And again, in comments, people will say, oh, I've had a 207 since from brand new and it never caused any issues. Probably, yeah, that's kind of the way things tend to go, really. Things can be seemingly unreliable, but there's always one that'll last for 30 years. Yeah, so yeah, that's true. What I'll do, I'll put it onto the table near the main socket over here, and I'll just go through a few of the features. Although I've owned this like 30 years, and a lot of the front panel, I don't understand what it does. I've never actually looked in the instructions. I just press play, stop, open, and do that. But let's have a look at it and see what you think. Oh, and it's got probably one of the most enthusiastic, let's call it, draw mechanisms I've ever seen. It really wants your CD, it really does. Okay, so let's move the camera and we'll put you over there. There we go, this front panel. Yeah, like I say, quite an array of buttons on there. We've got open, close, play, stop, pause, store, next index, and then a little fast forward symbol, standby, display, repeat, continue, cancel, previous index, and a little fast forward back symbol. So there's quite a lot going on there. The on off switch on the back. So yeah, so we've got a little standby light is lit up there. So just to prove we're in standby. Now the mech on this is a bit tight. It basically needs a new belt in it, I think. So this isn't quite, when I say these are really enthusiastic. Mine's, I think weary is the word now, but it's sort of lost its enthusiasm to a degree, but you get a bit of a feel about what's going on with it. So if we press open, it's yeah, it's quite, but it's basically, it's a very, very heavy door mechanism on this. And typical, you can tell the family's been using it because we've left a CD in it. I just picked this up from home this morning, and I think that's Kate Rusby. Is that Kate Rusby Christmas songs? Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's door mech. Like I say, really heavy looking thing. This again, press close. And like I say, you can't really tell with this, but when they close these, they really slam shut. So it's like as it closes. This is getting there, yeah, like a thump as it goes, and the whole table rocks. Because the actual weight that it's moving there, but it's one big dry belt that drives it. Basically, we'll just either renew the belt or just take the belt out and clean it. I'd probably sort that out. It's just obviously my own equipment never gets any sort of love and attention really. So to play, just press the play button. Checks the directory, comes up with. There you go. So next now play, we can jump between display on there, find out what it's doing. Got stop, play, pause. Which, I quite like the way all the buttons light up on this. It's quite an attractive thing. And you can start it again by pressing pause, or you can start it again by pressing continue. Never quite, like I say, half of the buttons on here. You think, what the heck? Start. I'm assuming there's a bit of programming going on. There's next and previous. If you go to next track, there's a bit of a delay before it actually does play the next track, because I think the idea being that you could sort of dial in another. Yeah, it's quite a confusing player to use, to be honest. I've never quite managed to work out what the heck's going on with it. But it's like I say, with me, I just tend to put a disc in, just press play, and that's all I ever do. So repeat button on here. Yeah, I suppose the display button's quite useful, really. Obviously, there is a remote. I've got the remote, and like you probably know from previous videos, I don't tend to use remote, so it's somewhere in the house. I've got one of those. But yeah, that's the front panel, and they do sound quite, for a CD player, they do sound quite engaging. They've got quite a nice sort of feel to them, really. But this has only ever been really used for a bit of background music, if we're sort of cooking or whatever. Just have the main system playing with a CD on, and that's not very frequent, to be honest. I don't tend to use it that often. So yeah, so that's the front panel. I'll turn it around and show you what's going on the back panel. Yeah, the back panel's pretty well straightforward, really. It's just straightforward left-right output. It's got digital output, an optical output, mains in, which is your little 2-pin IEC, which you can still use 3 pins on. An off switch. There's a little drawer there for a mains fuse. 200 comms. I'm assuming that's like a system type remote. Never seen it used, to be honest. So yeah, that's the back panel. It's like it's really solidly made. These are not a light CD player by any means. And like I say, this construction where it looks like it's in 2 boxes, but it's just a single back panel, but separate casework there for the two halves of the player. Never actually had to get inside one, to be fair, so quite how complicated that will be, I don't know. But yeah, never opened one up particularly, which you probably should do and check and get the belt sorted on this. So okay, let's turn the camera back around. Right, yeah, so that's the Meridian 206. Hope you enjoyed that one. I will be doing, and I've said this twice already, so you're probably bored of it now, but I will be doing a sort of a CD player, a sort of unreliable CD player video. There's quite a lot to talk about with that, actually. It's quite interesting, some of the models over the years and things. And it's interesting that quite a few people have already put things in the comments about certain players in the amplifier comments box. It's quite interesting to talk about, really. So when I do that, you'll be able to join me by the radiator, which some people found quite funny, actually. But it's not actually that. It's weird. It's really cold outside today, but it's not that cold. The shop seems to be quite warm. It's very strange, this place. Doesn't always retain its heat, keep its heat very well, and all the times it does. So I don't know. So I may or may not be by the radiator. We'll see how that goes. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. Like I say, if you ever want to give me a call, feel free. Give me a call. I'll see you in a future video. Thank you very much.